A title. Girl shamed for being poor in school. Then what happened after annual result? Watch full story. The bell rang at Willowbrook Elementary, and the halls filled with laughter and sneakers squeaking on polished floors. 11-year-old Tessa Monroe clutched her backpack, eyes darting to the group of popular girls clustered by the lockers. Their hair was always perfect. Their shoes always new. Tessa's sneakers were scuffed, her jeans patched at the knees. She kept her head down, hoping to blend in. Tessa's mom, Carmen, worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses by day, waiting tables by night. Their apartment was small, but Carmen filled it with warmth and stories. She always said, "We may not have much, but we have each other." Tessa loved her mom fiercely, but at school she hid the truth. She told classmates her mom was a lawyer, that they lived in a nicer part of town. Each lie felt heavy, but she wanted so badly to fit in. One day, the school announced the annual Family Day. Parents were invited to visit, meet teachers, and see their children's work. Tessa's stomach twisted. She couldn't let anyone see her mom in her faded uniform, couldn't let them know the truth. She begged Carmen not to come. "Please, Mom, I'll be fine. I just want to be like everyone else for once." Carmen's eyes filled with hurt, but she nodded. Family Day arrived, and Tessa watched as classmates posed for photos with their parents, doctors, business owners, lawyers. She stood alone, forcing a smile. The popular girls, led by Madison Blake, whispered and giggled. "Where's your mom, Tessa? Too busy winning cases?" Tessa's cheeks burned. She mumbled something about a big trial, then fled to the bathroom, tears stinging her eyes. That afternoon, Tessa found a note in her locker. Poor girl, poor lies. She crumpled it up, heart pounding. She wanted to disappear. At home, Carmen tried to comfort her, but Tessa pulled away. "You don't understand," she snapped. "I just want to be normal." Carmen hugged her anyway, whispering, "You're more than enough." As the weeks passed, Tessa threw herself into her schoolwork. She stayed late for extra credit, hoping good grades would make her feel worthy. She noticed something odd. Her friend Samir, who was always at the top of the class, suddenly started failing. He looked tired, distracted. One day, Tessa saw him talking to a man in a suit outside the school office. The man handed Samir an envelope, his face cold and stern. Curiosity gnawed at Tessa. She followed Samir after school, watching as he slipped into the back of a law office downtown. Through the window, she saw the man from earlier, Mr. Grayson, a well-known lawyer in town. He was shouting at Samir, waving papers in his face. Tessa's heart raced. Something was wrong. The next day, Samir didn't come to school. Rumors spread. His family was being evicted. His dad had lost his job. Tessa couldn't shake the image of Mr. Grayson's angry face. She decided to tell her mom. Carmen listened carefully, then nodded. Sometimes people in power use it to hurt those who have less. But we can't let fear stop us from doing what's right. Together, they visited Samir's family. His mother explained that Mr. Grayson was their landlord and lawyer. He'd promised to help with their immigration papers, but instead, he'd taken their money and threatened to have them deported if they complained. Carmen's eyes flashed with anger. "That's illegal. He can't do that." Carmen called a friend at the local legal aid office. They gathered evidence, emails, receipts, threats. Carmen worked late into the night, helping Samir's family file a complaint. Tessa watched her mom in awe, realizing for the first time how brave she was. Carmen wasn't just a cleaner or a waitress. She was a fighter. The case went to court. Tessa sat in the back, clutching Carmen's hand. Mr. Grayson tried to intimidate them, but Carmen stood tall, her voice steady. The judge listened, and in the end, ruled in Samir's family's favor. Mr. Grayson lost his license, and Samir's family was allowed to stay. Word spread through the school. The popular girl stopped whispering. Madison approached Tessa, her voice uncertain. "I didn't know your mom did all that. She's kind of amazing." Tessa smiled, pride swelling in her chest. For the first time, she didn't want to hide. At the annual awards assembly, Tessa was called to the stage. She'd earned the highest grades in her class. As she accepted her certificate, she looked out at the crowd and saw Carmen standing in the back, her uniform clean but humble, her eyes shining with love. Tessa's voice trembled as she spoke. "I used to be ashamed of who I was, but my mom taught me that being brave and kind is what really matters." The auditorium erupted in applause. Tessa ran to her mom, hugging her tight. She realized that true worth wasn't about money or status. It was about courage, about standing up for what's right, about loving without fear. And in that moment, Tessa knew her mom was the real hero. After the assembly, Tessa and Carmen walked home together, the late afternoon sun painting golden stripes on the sidewalk. Tessa felt lighter than she had in months. She squeezed her mom's hand, whispering, "I'm sorry for trying to hide you." Carmen smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Tessa's face. "You never have to be ashamed of where you come from, mija. Our story is ours, and it's beautiful." The next day at school, things felt different. Some kids who had once ignored Tessa now smiled or waved. Samir returned, his family safe and grateful. He hugged Tessa in the hallway, tears in his eyes. "You and your mom saved us," he said. Tessa shook her head. "You're my friend. That's what friends do." For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. But not everyone was happy. Madison and her friends still whispered, but their words had lost their sting. Tessa realized that their power over her had only ever been as strong as her own fear. She started sitting with new kids at lunch, inviting those who seemed lonely or left out. She remembered how it felt to be invisible, and she wanted to make sure no one else felt that way. Carmen's bravery inspired others, too. Parents at the school began to talk about their own struggles. Jobs lost, bills unpaid, dreams deferred. The PTA started a fund to help families in need, and Carmen was asked to help lead it. She hesitated at first, but Tessa encouraged her. "You helped Samir's family. You can help even more people." Carmen agreed, her confidence growing with each meeting. As spring turned to summer, Tessa's world expanded. She joined the debate team, using her voice to argue for justice and fairness. She volunteered at the local food bank with her mom, meeting people from all walks of life. She learned that everyone had a story, and that kindness could bridge even the widest gaps. One afternoon, Tessa found herself face-to-face with Madison in the library. Madison looked nervous, her usual confidence gone. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't know what you were going through. I wanted to fit in, too." Tessa nodded, understanding more than she wanted to admit. "It's hard for everyone, but we can do better." They sat together, talking about books and dreams, the walls between them slowly crumbling. At home, Carmen and Tessa celebrated small victories. A new recipe, a good report card, a letter from Samir's family thanking them again. Their apartment was still small, their budget still tight, but their hearts were full. Tessa realized that happiness wasn't about having more, but about loving more, about being brave enough to be yourself. The next school year, Tessa was chosen to give the welcome speech to new students. She stood on the stage, looking out at a sea of nervous faces. "I used to think I had to hide who I was to fit in," she began. "But I learned that our differences are what make us strong. Don't be afraid to tell your story. You never know who you might inspire." The applause was thunderous. Carmen watched from the back, tears streaming down her cheeks. She knew her daughter had found her voice, and that voice would carry her far. Tessa ran to her mom after the assembly, hugging her tight. "You're my hero," she whispered. Carmen smiled, holding her close. "And you're mine." As the months passed, Tessa's confidence blossomed. She became known not just for her grades, but for her kindness. She started a lunchtime club called Open Table, where anyone could sit and share a meal. No questions asked. Kids who once ate alone now found friends. Teachers noticed the change in the school's atmosphere. There was more laughter, more understanding, fewer whispers in the halls. Carmen's work with the PTA flourished. She helped organize food drives, clothing swaps, and tutoring sessions for families who needed extra support. Her reputation as a helper spread beyond the school. Local businesses began to donate supplies, and the community center offered space for after-school programs. Carmen was invited to speak at city council meetings, sharing her story and advocating for families like hers. One evening, Tessa and Carmen sat together on their small balcony, watching the city lights flicker. "Do you ever wish things were easier?" Tessa asked. Carmen thought for a moment. "Sometimes, but if things were easy, we might not have met all these wonderful people. We might not have learned how strong we are." Tessa nodded, understanding that their struggles had shaped them in ways she was only beginning to appreciate. The following spring, a new challenge arrived. The school announced a scholarship competition for students who demonstrated leadership and community service. Tessa wanted to apply, but the application required an essay about overcoming adversity. She hesitated, afraid to share her story so publicly. Carmen encouraged her. "Your truth is your strength, Tessa. Don't hide it." Tessa poured her heart into the essay, writing about her journey from shame to pride, about her mom's courage, and about the day she realized that being poor didn't mean being less. She wrote about Samir, about the Open Table Club, about the power of kindness. When she finished, she felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Weeks later, Tessa was called to the principal's office. She walked in, nerves jangling, and found her mom waiting with the principal and a group of teachers. "Congratulations, Tessa," the principal said, smiling. "You've won the scholarship. Your essay moved us all. You're a leader, and we're proud to have you at Willowbrook." Tessa hugged her mom, tears streaming down both their faces. Carmen whispered, "I always knew you could do it." The news spread quickly. Tessa's classmates cheered, and even Madison gave her a high five. Samir's family sent flowers, and the local newspaper ran a story about Tessa's journey. The scholarship opened new doors. Tessa attended summer programs, met students from different backgrounds, and dreamed bigger than ever before. She realized that her story, once a source of shame, was now a source of inspiration. She promised herself she would use her voice to help others, just as her mom had helped her. As summer faded into fall, Tessa's world continued to expand. She was invited to speak at a citywide youth conference about overcoming adversity. Standing on stage, she looked out at hundreds of faces, some curious, some skeptical, all waiting. She took a deep breath and told her story, not just of poverty, but of resilience, friendship, and the courage to stand up for what's right. Her words resonated. After her speech, students and parents approached her, sharing their own struggles and dreams. Tessa realized that everyone carried burdens, some visible, some hidden. She felt a new sense of purpose, determined to use her experiences to make a difference. She joined a youth advisory board, helping to shape policies for schools across the city. Meanwhile, Carmen's advocacy work gained momentum. She was asked to join a task force on affordable housing, where she fought for families facing eviction and homelessness. Her voice, once quiet and uncertain, now carried weight in City Hall. She never forgot the fear she'd felt when she was shamed for her job, but she used that memory to fuel her determination to help others. At school, Tessa's friendships deepened. Madison, once her harshest critic, became an ally. The two girls worked together on community projects, raising money for the food bank and organizing a winter coat drive. Their partnership surprised many, but Tessa knew that people could change if given the chance. She forgave Madison, understanding that insecurity often hides behind cruelty. One afternoon, Tessa received a letter from Samir's family. They had finally received their permanent residency, thanks in part to Carmen's help. "You and your mom gave us hope when we had none," the letter read. Tessa shared the news with her mom, and they celebrated with a homemade feast, grateful for the friendships that had grown from hardship. But life was not without setbacks. Carmen's hours at the restaurant were cut, and money grew tight again. Tessa worried about the future, but Carmen reassured her. "We've made it through worse, mija. We'll get through this too." Tessa took on a part-time job at the library, determined to help however she could. Through it all, Tessa never lost sight of what mattered. She continued to lead the Open Table Club, to volunteer, to speak out for those who felt invisible. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she faced each day with hope and determination, inspired by the woman who had taught her the true meaning of courage. Winter brought new challenges. The city was hit by a record cold snap, and many families at Willowbrook struggled to keep their homes warm. Tessa and Carmen worked with the PTA to organize a heating fund, collecting donations and distributing blankets and space heaters. Tessa saw firsthand how quickly circumstances could change, and how important it was to have a community that cared. One evening, as snow fell outside their window, Tessa and Carmen sat together, sipping hot chocolate. "Do you ever wish we could go back and change things?" Tessa asked. Carmen shook her head. "No, mija. Every hard day made us stronger. Every kindness we gave or received made us who we are." Tessa nodded, understanding that their struggles had shaped their hearts. At school, Tessa's leadership was tested when a new student, Olivia, arrived mid-year. Olivia's family had lost everything in a fire, and she wore the same clothes for days. Some kids whispered, but Tessa remembered her own pain and invited Olivia to join the Open Table Club. Slowly, Olivia opened up, and soon she was laughing and sharing stories with the group. Tessa's teachers noticed her empathy and nominated her for a statewide Youth Leadership Award. When she was chosen as a finalist, she was invited to a ceremony at the state capitol. Carmen borrowed a dress from a friend, and together they traveled by bus to the event. Tessa was nervous, but Carmen squeezed her hand. "Just be yourself. That's more than enough." On stage, Tessa spoke about the power of kindness, about her mom's courage, and about the day she realized that being poor didn't mean being powerless. She ended her speech with a message to anyone who felt invisible. "You matter. Your story matters. Don't let anyone make you feel small." The audience rose in a standing ovation, and Carmen wept with pride. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Tessa what she wanted to do next. She smiled, thinking of all the people who had helped her along the way. "I want to help others find their voice. I want to make sure no one is ever ashamed of who they are." Her words were published in newspapers across the state, inspiring others to share their own stories. Back at Willowbrook, Tessa was welcomed home with cheers and hugs. Olivia's family found a new apartment, thanks to the community's support. Madison and Tessa continued their work together, proving that even the deepest divides could be bridged by understanding and forgiveness. Spring arrived, and with it, a sense of renewal. Tessa's story had become a quiet legend at Willowbrook. New students joined the Open Table Club, and teachers often asked Tessa to speak to classes about empathy and courage. She never forgot the pain of being shamed, but she wore her past like a badge of honor, proof that she had survived and grown. Carmen's work in the community continued to flourish. She was offered a full-time position at the community center, coordinating programs for families in need. For the first time, she and Tessa could breathe a little easier. Their apartment was still modest, but it was filled with laughter, warmth, and the aroma of Carmen's homemade meals. One afternoon, Tessa received a letter from the state's education board. She had been awarded a scholarship for her leadership and service. The news brought tears to both her and Carmen's eyes. "You did this," Tessa whispered, hugging her mom. "We did this," Carmen replied, her voice full of pride. At the end of year assembly, Tessa was asked to give the closing speech. She stood on stage, looking out at her classmates, teachers, and her mom in the front row. "I used to think I had to hide who I was to be accepted," she began. "But I learned that our struggles make us strong, and our kindness makes us heroes. My mom is my hero, and I hope one day to be as brave as she is." The applause was thunderous. Carmen stood, tears streaming down her face as Tessa ran into her arms. In that moment, all the shame, all the fear melted away. What remained was love, resilience, and the knowledge that they had changed not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them. As summer began, Tessa and Carmen sat on their balcony, watching the sunset. "Do you think things will always be this good?" Tessa asked. Carmen smiled, wrapping an arm around her daughter. "Life will always have its hard days, mija. But as long as we have each other, we'll always find a way through." Their story became a beacon for others, a reminder that courage can be quiet, that kindness can be revolutionary, and that the real heroes are often the ones who struggle the most. Tessa no longer hid her story. She shared it, knowing that every time she did, she helped someone else find their own strength. And so, the girl who was once shamed for being poor became a leader, a friend, and a voice for justice. The mother who was once hidden became a hero, not just to her daughter, but to an entire community. Together, they proved that dignity cannot be measured by wealth, and that the bravest thing you can do is to be yourself.